Ching ching. KEKFILA TCG. This video was originally on my Patreon, but now, since a little more time has passed, it is here on YouTube for free. I put a lot of work into editing, and the players I work with are experts in their field. I would ask anyone who wants to improve at the game to join my Discord. We have gameplay discussions that happen every day. And a very special thank you to all my patrons for supporting this channel. It's a great day here at KEKFILA's Patreon. I am the KEKFILA, and today I have with me a good Whitebeard player, and there's only a handful of them. We have Evan. How are you doing today, Evan?
Doing fantastic. Always a good day when we're talking about the beard.
That's great. I know they have a lot of Bluebeard stuff going on soon, so that's another.
Yes,
topic.
I'm interested in trying that out.
Yeah, me too. It has a lot of crazy cards, and maybe that's another thing for OP08. But today we're talking about EB01 Whitebeard, Edward Newgate, and if you guys don't know Evan's topped at least twice with Edward Newgate. I know that he works a lot.
I have 3 regional tops with Whitebeard.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and then I know you work a lot with Garrett, right?
Yes, he's my main playtest partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know whenever you make a post saying like I basically just got his list or I worked with him on this, and but you know you put it into effect, which is pretty strong. This is still a strong leader.
Yeah,
yeah.
6K is good.
6K is super good. With that, let's just jump into the guide. I always like to ask first why. Why should someone consider playing Whitebeard now or in general?
So the reason to be playing Whitebeard right now is if you don't like everyone around you is playing black and you are sick of losing to black, because as the format stands right now, it has a pretty strong black matchup. Being able to get utility and attack with the things before they die is really, really good. Black's defensive capabilities isn't the strongest because they have to put a lot of resources into removing a board, and being able to get strong, aggressive rush attackers in before something dies in keeps advantage tempos. Also, defense-wise, Black usually has to put all their Dawn towards popping stuff, so they a lot of the time just kind of have to pass turn and not be able to swing in the beard. And you're constantly chaining higher cost after higher cost, so they once you get the 9 beard on, if they've spent the entire game popping your Luffys and aces, they might not have a response to a 9 drop.
Yeah, exactly. If you're playing against removal decks, but obviously so it's pretty good because it's big and it has rush, right? It has yes. Offensive, defensive, and I mean, I wouldn't say it's linear, but I would say for doing his job, it does a really good job. And I always like to say, never half-ass 2 things, whole-ass 1 thing. And Whitebeard for sure does that.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because this deck is really competent at doing what it does, and it really shows that by the fact that the list does not change much. There are so many set 1, set 2, and set 3 cards in this deck. The list was and the list you have up here is playing the Kid Killers, but when I topped, that wasn't a thing. That's stuff that I'm trying out right now. And so the fact that this deck is so powerful with the old support, it's a testament of how good this deck was in its heyday.
Yeah, exactly. Great. With that, I actually want to go over the deck list first. I want to say, I know people play searchers like Nami or Izo. Or you just find yourself only playing Izo now? You're playing Nami and Izo. Oh, okay. Yeah. Actually, go ahead. I'm gonna let you go on the deck list.
So deck list, Nami Izo is really an important core to the deck. Being able to play a searcher turn 1 and then next turn being able to attach Dawn to it and swinging is actually way more important than a lot of people give credit to. Because this deck has it has a built-in timer, so you need to be able to get in every single turn, and it's really important. Even turn 1, if you don't have a searcher and you open up Nico Robin, it's you just play the Nico Robin turn 1, just so that you have something to attack with the next turn. Like, that's how important it is to be able to drop down a 1-cost turn 1.
Yeah.
The Kid Killer, something I'm practicing with. I was talking about how the deck list hasn't changed very much in the last 3-4 sets. And the major reason behind that is that because after like set 3, red has not gotten like a solid piece of support in a very long time. Its early 3 sets were so powerful that they're able to compete with what's still coming out now. And because of that, like, I think Bandai has been taking a step back into the quality of cards that red has been receiving and making it very focused on like less generic stuff and more like focused towards the decks around whatever is coming out.
Yeah.
Kid Killer is the first red card in a very long time that I've been like, oh my god, this card's actually really, really good, worth testing with.
Yeah.
Being able to drop down a 4/7 rusher is very, very powerful.
What did this generally replace? Just the 4/6?
I took out 1 Ace, 1 Luffy, and 1 Nico for that.
Okay, got it. Were you already off the 4/6 then? The 4-cost
6? The 4-cost 6. Oh, the vanilla, yeah.
Yeah.
The playing down a vanilla in the format is just too slow. Like,
okay.
You'll drop down a vanilla card, and then black or blue or whatever removal deck will just eat that up. And then not being able to get any utility out of the things that you're playing before it dies is just not good in a deck that like is playing too fast.
Okay. Got it. All right. Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I do want to go over a little bit of the 2Ks. I know Sanji and Jozu is mostly here for that 2K, maybe in those cringe situations where you need to place them down to win as well.
Yeah, I mean, Jozu has rush. I have definitely won a game because he was my only rusher in hand, and I just needed to be able to swing for game.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then is there any other? I mean, you have Makino. Makino's. It's just. I mean, this is probably going to be the last 2K you discard because this is probably like a finisher.
Yeah, you like clutch those Machinos all game long.
Yeah.
There'll be games where like turn 1 you play a searcher and it like survives, and then like the entire game it's just kind of sitting there, and I'm like staring at 3 Machinos. I'm like, oh, Nami, you're gonna just get in there this game. I can't wait.
Yeah. I mean, one Dawn for getting 3K power is pretty good, right?
Yeah, it's really powerful.
Yeah, and then even if you used it early, it's actually even better because they have to swing into it, right? But usually they'll have, hopefully your opponent, it has weenies and things like that. But I did want to talk about the defensive options as far as this. I know we have the Radical Beam, Bad Manners Kick Course, Guard Point, and then I guess the Blocker Marco. Is there ever a situation where you think, other than just getting bottom decked, like maybe not even to play the Blocker Marco, are we just stalling out a little bit longer now because we have this?
Blocker Marco is not there because it's a blocker. Blocker Marco's there is that because when you play against black and they pop it, I can make it come back alive.
Okay.
It's just a body that they can't get rid of.
Okay. Oh, okay. It's basically another attacker at this point.
Yes. Like obviously you can, yeah, exactly. You can play it, and then sometimes it just comes in clutch, the fact that it reads blocker. But like I said, there's just so much heavy removal in the format, and being able to keep your guys alive is really, really important. So if I can play a Marco, and then they like against Gecko doesn't have an answer to Marco.
Yeah.
And
they just
Sokka might
right,
be like, I was like, Sokka's probably the best deck in the format, but Marco's like the most played deck in the format, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. I'd actually agree with that. So, with that, let's actually just kind of jump into some Mulligan scenarios. What are we? I guess you don't have to go too much into each deck. Maybe you can, but what are we looking to Mulligan for in our first hand?
Your 1-drop searchers. You like Heartmole for your 1-drop searchers.
Okay.
Like, obviously, it's nice to like see the curve out, and then if your hand is like 4 1-drop searchers and like a 2K, you're gonna probably mulligan and stuff like that. But the 1-drop searchers are really important because that's the first turn is the only turn in which I'm not like drawing 2 cards every turn with Whitebeard leader, and then for the most part, I can just kind of assume that like my searchers and the fact that I take a life and draw a card every turn, like I'll end up through the course of the game, I'll see a curve out.
Okay.
But that first turn is like the important turn that I need to make sure that they're in my hand.
Got it. Sweet. Is there any like matchup where you wouldn't say you're looking for the searcher, or is it's every matchup?
No, it's every matchup. It's good. There's never a matchup where you don't want to play a searcher turn 1.
Okay. Going first or second, what are your thoughts on first and second?
It's really format dependent. This deck is actually pretty good at going either way because it has a really strong going first curve, but if you go second, then you can just leave a Dawn active for one of your defensive events. A lot of the time, like in the past, Whitebeard's always wanted to go second, but in this format, especially against Gecko, Gecko really likes to go first, so being able to take that away from them is really nice. Ninebeard, being able to play 9 on curve and keeping that life is a lot more important. Before, it was more prevalent that you were an AK leader and it didn't matter if you're at 1 or 0 life, but like the way that the pace of the format is, actually just being able to like keep that life is really, really important. So playing that at 9 and having no active Dawn is still really, really strong and pretty important. And also, if you go first, you get the first attack. The main deck that I would want to go second against is Yamato, because I want to leave an active Dawn for the push rush banished, or the double attack banished turn. Like, I need to be able to defend against that.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. All right. So go second, maybe against Yamato. Everything else you can just kind of do either or, maybe take away their curve.
Yeah, whatever's better. Like against yellow decks, I'll usually go second because yellow really likes to go second. So yeah.
What do you think about like red purple law specifically? It could be they like to go second in general, I think, but
yeah. So against that, you can go second. Like whatever the deck you're sitting in front of wants to do, that's usually what I want to do, just to steal that away from them.
Yeah, I mean, sounds good. I love that. With that early game, what should we be looking to do early game? Maybe like 1 to like 7 Dawn, right?
It's just all aggro, all face at all times. Like turn 1, you're going like play Searcher, play 1 drop, no matter what it is. Turn 2, you're attaching 3, swinging 5 with the Searcher, and then you're swinging 6 with Leader. On your 5 Dawn curve, you're playing Rush Luffy, or you're playing like a Marco or the Kid Killer. You're going in. You need to make sure that you're going in aggressive and as fast as possible. Against blue, especially blue decks, they're on pudding a lot more now. So I will like turn 2 start dropping Machinos to keep my hand low and also getting aggressive. In the last region I went to, I ended up getting paired up against my friend, and he was playing Sokka, and I knew he was on pudding, so I was just dropping down the Machinos. I played like 2 Machinos by turn 3 against him. And, yeah. He did pudding me, but I was at like a 6 or 7 card hand, so it wasn't as aggressive of a pudding.
I mean, but I mean, it's worth it for him to do it, but it's like also doesn't feel so great. With that, I kind of put here. I don't have a middle game, but I'll put it in between ending and early game. What are we looking to do like in the 7 to 10 Dawn turn? Are we just acing and removing board, or are we just still going aggressive? Is it just depending on the matchup?
Yeah, it's depending on the matchup. Before, acing and removing board was really important, but it's when you reach your 7 to Dawn curve, you have to sit there as the Whitebeard player and go, what's my win con? Because a lot of people playing, and I see this really heavily with Whitebeard players, but it's also just kind of like in general, where people always play to get their next turn, but they're never playing to like win the game.
Yeah.
And that's a really, really big thing with Whitebeard, where you have to like have decided by your 7 Dawn curve, like, how am I going to win this game? And it's a lot of like prepping for that moment.
Yeah.
If they're like at 3 life, I can't afford to go for board.
Yeah.
Like that board might be scary and might kill me, but if you're at 3 life and I kill that board and then next turn you just play like a blocker and then like wall up too fast, the leader has an inevitability of killing itself, so you have to be on the aggression in order to produce the results of winning.
Yeah.
So it's nice when you can't afford to go board, but you have to be able to push in.
As far as taking damage early, I know it's going to be matchup dependent. Like, if you're against like non-pudding decks, you're probably... If your kid's pudding decks, you're probably countering out most of the time.
Yeah.
But is there any decks or any things you could think of where you're just taking damage the whole time?
So that used to be like the strategy, was that you just didn't counter, and then you went to like a 12 card hand, and then you just like made your opponent feel like they couldn't do anything. Now, maybe not as much. I counter a lot more with this deck, this format, because you like having the life is really important, because especially like against black, they drop a Gecko Moria, and then now all of a sudden they have like 4 bodies on board, and then all of them are like pretty big attackers. So it's kind of nice to have like the life to insulate you. But also, I kind of play to do I have Ninebeard in my hand this game? So am I going to counter out? Like that's
Yeah.
also a big deciding factor. Like, do I even have it in my hand? Because if I don't have it in my hand, then why would I even bother countering out?
Okay.
Also, there's like a big thing of like keeping track of your own life and then determining like what life are you going to be at. Like if you're at 2 life on your opponent's turn, you need to counter out because if you don't counter out, you're gonna end your turn at 0 life.
Yeah.
So like if you're at 3, that's fine. But if like you're at 2, like a lot of people will be like, "Oh, I'm at 2 life. I can take this and I'll stay at 1." You're like, "No, like you're going to go to 0 now." Like so it's important to like have that mindset. Unless like next turn you're gonna be at 9 and you have the beard in hand. But if not, you need to be countering out.
Okay. God, I mean that's really well structured, I think. So with that ending games, I actually whenever I taught people how to get better at the game, right, I actually talked about how Nami teaches you how to be Dawn efficient, and then Whitebeard teaches you how to end games. And so, what are your thoughts on ending games? What are I mean, I know it's just kind of the face, but what are your thoughts on like setting up at least for the end game or going forward?
You have to figure out what your win cons are. Like a big thing is with Rush Luffy. If you're playing against a deck, like if you're playing against Green, for instance, Green's a really good example where they can like just generate a bunch of blockers, or even Black generates a bunch of blockers. You can be like, do I need to keep like just play a Rush Luffy and pass for this turn? Like not swing at that Rush Luffy and then be able to attach like 10 Dawn to it and swing for game. Or just the way that you need to manipulate your Dawn. I think spreading your Dawn is one of like the big things, and then doing the math of like, okay, because usually you'll have like a rusher in hand too, so it's like that's something that you have to keep in mind. Like, oh, is it better for me to like attach Dawn in this moment, or is it better for me to like drop another body and get the extra attack in? Usually it's actually just better to attach Dawn to what's already on your board, unless you physically need like that extra attack or you're going to lose the game, or if your opponent's on like 0 cards in hand, so like the extra attack
it's free. Yeah.
is free.
Okay.
But yeah, that's like a really important thing, is being able to like see your win cons and play for your win cons. Like in the last regional, my very last round, I was playing against Gecko. He had 2 life with 4 cards in hand, and I had 3 attacks.
Yeah.
So I was like, all 3 of these need to attack to win, and I could have like played like a 9-beard and like attempted to stall, but I was like, I'm going to lose. Like if I play Whitebeard, I lose this game.
Yeah.
I need to be able to win this turn, or I'm going to lose this game.
Yeah, I guess it's also a big description. Like you need to calculate before you go for game if you actually can just survive one more turn, right? Is that
100%? I do that all the time.
Yeah, usually
I
you'll
will
count
go
all the counter in your hand. Like if they just desperately go for it, you just have it, right?
Yeah.
So,
there's also like a big thing of like, kind of like there's like a secondary game, like a nuance of me being like, oh no, I'm at 0 life. Can you kill me? Who knows?
Yeah. Staying at you still have a lot of cards that have no Dawn up, but you have like, a bunch of 2K counters. They just go for it, they just cripple themselves. Or
I'll be at like a 7-card hand and then with 0 counter on board, and I'll like leave 2 active, and I'm like, I don't know, I have 2 active Dawn though.
Yeah.
Like, who knows?
It's definitely a bluff beam, these kind of things. There is a side gaming to that, but they don't take that chance because they play the game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They should know that swinging 16 at you is not going to go through. So
yeah, I remember there was one regional. It was the one I won, Kissimmee, last year. I was playing against a Doflamingo player, and I had like a 13-card hand, but it was awful. And the entire time, I was like, if you attached 10 to your leader right now, I'd lose this game.
But you just kept 2 Dawn up and just
I just kept 2 Dawn up. I was like sweating the entire time, and then this against me, you have this Doflamingo player. So I was like, how many cards? Oh my god! And he's just like sitting there, like I can't win this game, and I'm like, yeah, man, totally.
I think there's an instance of bluffing in every game, but it is an art form to not give that away, because I'm sure you've played against players before that literally show their frustration, even though they have like 50 cards in hand. You're like, what are you so mad about? Like you're winning, right? So
it's also like a really big thing. When your opponent swings for 6, or I guess like 7 against this deck, and they start countering, like they drop double 1K in their hand. I'm like, oh, you don't have a 2K. Like that's such a showing tell that people like don't think about. Um, I was playing against this Gecko Moria player, and he had like an 8 card hand against me. Like he was 100% winning this game, and then I swung 6 at him, and then he dropped double. Like I swung 7 at him. That's what it was. I swung 7 at him, and then he dropped 3 1Ks to defend it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I can just win this game.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, it's always good to test as well when going. Like,
Yeah.
Also, we're going for lethal. I guess we're talking about ending games. If you have an attack, you can just test with first.
Yeah, that's usually like if my opponent's at like 1 life left, and then I swing with 10 with my like with Whitebeard, and that's like such like a telling play because 10's like good enough number where I don't have to like commit to anything, and if they go to 0 with it, then it's just kind of like, okay, what, like, could they not defend it? Or do they think that they can survive this board even
you
though
said
it's
when
like
you swing 10 at them?
Yeah, with the 9 beard.
Oh, with 9 beard. Okay, yeah. Okay, misunderstood.
Yeah.
But I thought you meant the leader. Okay, yeah. If you
No.
swing 10 with Whitebeard to see what they do. I mean,
Yeah.
more than normally, they're probably gonna take the 10 beard, but you haven't committed any Dawn yet, so you know.
I've definitely had people where they just like drop their entire hand to counter that, and I'm like, oh, okay, never mind. I'm sorry, my bad.
Yeah. With that, we're actually just gonna jump into matchups then, and the first matchup I always like to go over is actually the mirror match. What are your thoughts on the mirror match?
Mirror match. It's so I have not played a Whitebeard mirror match in a minute, but I do remember when it was like prevalent, I was like actually really good with the mirror match. I didn't drop a single mirror match in any of the regionals I've ever played.
Yeah.
With this deck, it's a lot of like I said, playing your outs and then understanding like you have to think like 2 turns in advance. Like if I attack with this card now, how is the ace going to affect this? Like, am I going to lose board state by attacking you? Am I like, do I need to like wait? Going second's pretty big because like you can, when they swing, you can play your ace and then swing before they can, to kill their things. But then you are also like you'll be on your 5-Don curve and then you'll like play Rush Luffy and then you're like, oh, do I swing with this, understanding that they're going to be able to ace and kill this? But then next turn I'll be able to play my ace and kill their thing, or do I like play the Luffy and then do I pass to make sure that their ace can't like just?
It's definitely a good idea not to give their ace the full value. Maybe it's like 1 card of value, but maybe not 2. I mean, I've always kind of saw this as whoever aces laughs last. Right. So it's definitely an ace war. I mean, I would suggest to anybody, just definitely look for ace if you're playing down Ezos and such.
There's also like a big thing with like who can chain more Whitebeards. Like that's also like a really important thing.
Yeah, that's a really cute deal. I remember that. So you have 2 options here that are both very strong. So I mean, generally against Whitebeard, if you're playing, let's say you're not playing Whitebeard against Whitebeard, but your goal is to just kind of build a wide board. They get to 0 life and eat their whole hand up with minimum attacks. Right? That's some strategies.
Yeah.
And then
there's
with Whitebeard, you could just wait to them to get to 0 as well.
Yeah, exactly. You can just like play a bunch of guys and not swing with them.
Yeah.
And let your deck do the work for you.
It's a very funny aspect of it. Like they have to like ditch their own strategies to beat Whitebeard.
Yeah.
So
I was like we play tested it a ton, but like the I Love You event, we definitely jammed that, trying to like see if this is worth it. Banned card now, but I miss Boat so much. In the Peoria regional, like in set 2, that was like that was the first in-person regional we attended, and then that was like one of the first in-person regionals for this game. Everyone was on Whitebeard at that event, and then I played a mirror match like every round or every other round, and every game they thought I was just playing like the Strawbeard version that everyone was used to.
Yeah.
And at the end of the game, I'd play down Boat, and then my opponent's eyes would get so wide of like, oh, I've lost to this game, and I never realized it, because they were like going so aggressive and put me at low life that they thought they were ahead of the game, and then just having like that like ha moment
It was
was pretty great
definitely
with
an
this.
interesting meta at the time because boat
Yeah.
was a thing, right? And I mean, it was really funny. I remember, I remember it was a just take all the damage, hope to trigger boat, and then like just slam your opponent because it was broken.
Yeah.
So, um, but there was a couple different builds of that, and I liked yours and Garrett's with that weekend. So great. I guess with Whitebeard, just to go over that, if you're against the mirror match, just build board, use your ace against their ace, maybe kind of bait. You know, you do have to probably at some point swing something so they play an ace.
Correct.
It makes it a little hard if like you swing with the Marco. If they have like two Marcos and they ace your Marco, right? Like it doesn't feel very good for them.
No. And then if you put them to the point where you're like
Mhm.
chaining Whitebeards, and then they're like, oh, I guess like I can't really ace now because I have to respond with Whitebeard too.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I mean that's the best response to Whitebeard, right? It's just playing another
Yeah.
Whitebeard. So
100%.
okay, got it. With that, the next matchup I like to go over is Blue Black Sakazuki. What are your thoughts
Yes.
on this matchup today?
Uh, it's the best deck in the format by sure. I do think one of the advantages of playing this deck is that this deck has one of the better like win outs to it. With the aggressive
Fast.
rushers.
Yeah.
Nico Robin is in this deck purely for that matchup. That's
Mhm.
the only reason why that card exists in this deck. Because of Rebecca. Being able to pop Rebecca and then getting aggressive is really, really good, really important because like they just kind of like will play the Rebecca and be like, oh yeah, that's like enough for me, like for now. Like I'll play a Sabo, I'll play like the Rebecca or like a Porcelino or something like that. And then you can just kind of be like, pop the Rebecca, play ace minus Sabos or like your other blockers swing in, and then now they're like losing their blockers or not blocking because they don't want to lose them, and you're like still really pushing and aggressive. The deck is still really scary. Like in no ways is that matchup free at all. In the last regional, I played against 3 Sakas, and then one of those Sakas was my only loss. Um, that was like the deck's worst performing game all game, and then it was also against a really good player. That player ended up getting top 8 as well. So he like I remember getting upset because like he played it perfectly, and then there was a turn where I was at 7, and he had I went to 0 life, and then he had a Gecko Mori on board, and I only had 7 cards in hand, and I left like 1 Dawn active, and I was like, there's no way he's not going to just attach 10 and go for game here, and if he does that, I win this game. And then he like played it so patiently, and then he played like another Gecko, and then like played 2 more blockers down. And I was like, damn it, be greedy, try to end this game now.
Yeah. But okay, I mean, I guess the hard problem is you need to go faster, so they can't just like only block her up, right?
Correct. You have to be really aggressive because then it puts them in the pace of like, oh, do I kill their guy or do I play this blocker?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's very obnoxious as well when they're just strictly like you want to put them in a hard spot where they need to either build a big guy or play like a 2 blockers, right?
Correct.
So especially, I mean, I'm sure like a Rebecca Sabo turn's really annoying, but they literally did nothing to advance their board, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then also you have to like it's really annoying, but you basically have to hold that Rush Luffy all game. You have to always have a Rush Luffy in hand because that's your win con against that deck. Like you have to put him to 0, and then you have to like windmill slam that Luffy against them.
Yeah, exactly. If he doesn't kill him that turn, it's gonna cripple their whole hand. So they should lose the next turn, even if they do have blockers. So, so and obviously Newgate's pretty good in this matchup because, well, I guess what you're trying to say too is you're playing down a lot of these cards, so they're removing them, like their 5 drop, the 7 drop, and hopefully by the 9 drop they don't have more removal because they've already used so much, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Against that,
and then like if I play down a Marco, they have to like they're going to use Hellhound and Houndblaze. I always call it Hellhound.
Yeah.
Houndblaze to remove it. So I'm like, oh, that's a Houndblaze. That's not going to like kill my Whitebeard later.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, great. I think that's a good strategy to have against it. Just play normal Whitebeard. Just kind of what this deck's supposed to do against Sakazuki, and then Sakazuki can sometimes crumble because they just see no counter cards. So.
Yeah, they only play like 8 2Ks ever. So
yeah,
even though every Sokka player I ever have seems to play like 12 every game somehow.
That was a good time when I used to play 12, just for Whitebeards. But with that, the next matchup I'd like to go into is Gecko Moria, Black Gecko Moria. What are your thoughts on this matchup? I know you said go first because they like to go first.
Yes.
Is it like a lot of Marco spamming or just go ahead?
Marco is nice against that deck because you can like pop like their little guys so that they can't just like attach Dawn to it. A lot of the time they play that like turn one, they're playing the girl that mills 5 from the top of their deck.
Sindri.
Yeah, Sindri. And then like those Sindris can start attacking your searchers, which is annoying. So getting rid of that is nice, and then they don't have like an answer. I remember in the regional, it was like round 8 or something like that. I played against this Gecko player, and he popped my Marco, and I was like, cool Marco effect, and I discarded an event, and it came back. And then he swung Gecko into my Marco, and I was like, cool Marco effect, discarded an event, it comes back alive. And he was like, that's once per turn. No, it's not. And he picked up the card and was like, I thought this was once per turn.
Yeah,
I'm like,
broken, baby.
Yeah.
For as many cards as you have. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Maybe that's like maybe he's confusing that with Enel, the other annoying
Probably,
card.
yeah.
Yeah. But that, God bless that card, by the way. But
Yeah.
So okay, yeah. So Marco's pretty annoying here, and I mean, I feel like the deck's kind of slow, to be honest, until they have an ACOS Moria.
It's really annoying when they chain Peronas against me.
Oh, okay.
And the last round I played against a Gecko player, and he played like 3 Peronas in a row against me. And I was like sweating that game. I thought I was gonna lose that game. That was the game where I told you I had 3 attacks and he had 2 life, and he had a 4-card hand. And I was like, oh, I lose.
Okay, yeah. So okay, is there any advice against like that Perona thing? Are you just discarding only non-counter cards, or just really with the worst cards?
Yeah, you have to discard non-counter as much as possible, or like 1-drops, because like you need to have counter, but you also have to like make sure that you have plays. My biggest thing against Gecko is that even though they are generating that board, the board they're generating are all 5Ks, so it's not as scary against you, and you have to just kind of ignore it, because you can't spend too much time trying to focus on the board, because let's say like that Perona is the only Perona in circulation, and I start killing that Perona. Now they're bringing it. Same thing with Absalon. Like, I usually never attack Absalon because I don't want them to have access to Absalon again. And it's kind of like that, where like you just kind of have to accept the fact that they now have this board, but I can't waste time attacking the board because I need to go facing them. The only time you can like kind of do it is on like on your ace turn, and you can go like Searcher into their guy. But that's the only time you can afford to swing into their guys.
Have you ever had a situation where you're able to successfully like ace their Moria and just crack it?
Oh no, you're wasting too much time, because they're gonna just play another Moria next turn, and you're gonna be like, oh, I could have like put him to 0 life this turn instead.
Okay, the fact that they're 5 life actually creates a small problem. So
yes, you have to go in as fast as possible.
Well, good news is they have no big events like Radical Beam to help them with their strategies. So it's easy to math out, I think, at the end of the day, even though they have a lot of cards.
I felt bad because that same player that swung like into my Marco and didn't realize it was not once per turn, he swung 9 into my leader. Just like he was testing the waters. He was like, "Nah, I'm a Gecko," and I was like, "Tap 1 Radical Beam for 10," and he picked up Radical Beam, and then he was like, "Red just has this card. How is this a card?" And I'm like, "Oh, you're a new player. You did not deal with."
Oh no, all the new players. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, this card was banned for a bit. Restricted to 1.
It was that 1.
Yeah, it should have been banned a long time ago. I remember you guys talking about that. So.
Oh yeah, that was my number 1 like pick forever ago. But now it's like pretty fine.
It's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of ridiculous when it was power creep before power creep was a thing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But it was kind of ridiculous at the time that the most aggressive deck also has the best defensive options, because no other deck had this. So
correct.
No, all the decks have it.
Yeah, all the decks have it now,
but they don't use it.
Yeah, because it's still better in Whitebeard. Like being able to have a 10 is insane.
Yeah. The next matchup I'd like to go over is actually Yellow Enel, a little bit more difficult. But what are your thoughts on this matchup? How can we navigate this leader?
Enel leader. Yellow's so annoying because you have to like kill them like 3 times. Basically, the way I do it is that Enel usually doesn't have like an insane amount of counter because they play a lot of like events and they play a lot of non-counter cards. So usually I just go to kill them, and then I just expect that they're gonna like life bullshit me, and I'm not going to be able to kill them. And that, like, because a lot of people like stall out the game and then they go for like the perfect I'm going to win turn. And like usually I'm just kind of like I'm playing as if I'm going for game in like a more comfortable position. And then like they're gonna be like, oh, play blocker, pop your guy, gain an extra life, do all this stuff. And then I'm just gonna be like, okay, that's fine. I don't die this turn because I like did it really early. And then I'm going to like just survive that turn, and I'm going to do it again and hope that you can't back to back like cheese me. And it's like, because when you're playing against yellow, no matter what, like you're going to lose games because they just hit the double survive in life and stuff like that.
Exactly. So it sounds like we are looking to just hope they don't get that lucky. But what to set that up, what does that look like? Are we putting them to 0, playing rush cards, and then swinging at them?
Yeah,
like we're not playing Newgate, right?
Yeah. It depends, because like sometimes it's better just to wall up, because if you leave like the Enel player at like 2 or 1, like they're just gonna like play, like if you try pushing him to 0, it's really hard to push that deck to 0 before like 7 or 9. But if you leave them at like just 1, they're gonna just play Yamato and then go to 2. So sometimes it's better, instead of like just like setting up Dawn and then plays to go aggressive and putting him to 1, it's better just to like generate more board against them and then leave things active so they can't swing into it.
So put them at 2. The only reason why I said that 9 gate, I guess you just use it for the skill, and they might Raigo it with the new event, but I mean then they go down to 1 that turn, which is actually pretty good for you because they're not going to go back up to 2. So no, I think that's pretty good. Yeah. So set up board like you said, and then swing. I could see even cards like Sanji being pretty juicy here, but like maybe not. Maybe you need the counter. I guess this is your standard setup, and then maybe like an additional rush card, like you're saying, because they do hit a lot of cards that have no counter.
Yeah.
Right. And their removal is just 8 cost Katakuri against you. Like 9-drop Yamato isn't really removal in this case.
No, not at all. I'm going down too fast. They can like I guess rejects ban now. Well, rejects ban later in the format, I guess.
Yeah, later in the format, but it's I mean, what are you thinking with reject? Sorry.
Well, reject made that matchup like a lot harder for this deck because they didn't have like answers to Rush Luffy. You would just play Rush Luffy and it would just like sit there all game. But them having like a response to Rush Luffy is very annoying now. But like it's like a card that'll get banned later. But even going into set 7, they're gonna have like the Luffy that pops 5 drops or less. So like the more the game progresses, the yellow like matchup gets better for them always. I feel like I think every set yellow gets stronger in the Whitebeard, because before everyone was like, oh, yellow's an auto lose against Whitebeard. And every single set they just get like one card that makes it like a little tiny worse.
4-drop is more. It's a 4-drop. I know 5-drop that KO's a 4-drop, but it's still pretty good.
Oh, it's a 5 that kills a 4.
Yeah.
Or no, I'm thinking of Sabo. That's what I'm thinking.
That's what it's right now. But the other one's better.
Yeah.
The new Luffy's better because you get to draw a card.
Yes.
So.
And then what is it? Onamis too, because like randomly people just play Onamis for the trigger effect.
Oh, yeah. So you have to definitely play a little strangely, but. Okay, just build board, kind of do our normal thing. Now, I do want to bring up the boogeyman of the format of this deck is actually another black-yellow, I call him fake taxi or taxi Luffy. What are your thoughts on like actually trying to win this game? If is it them just being unlucky? Like the fact that they're at 9K base is gross.
It's almost an unwinnable matchup for Whitebeard, unfortunately. It's really, 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 really bad. Your best chances are to leave them at like 3 life. The entire game you're not attacking them. Okay. And it's really annoying because I hate when you have to like play into a strategy like that where you're like, oh, I'm not allowed to attack you, and then not play the game the way that the game's intended to be played. But you leave them at 3, and then you just play bodies and you don't swing with them until you think you can kill them. And that's the entire way you play that deck. Okay. And then you hope that, because the black yellow Luffy player is gonna like burn themselves, but I would rather them drop their 2Ks from hand and like trash the life rather than them just like hold the 2K and then take the damage.
I would think Marco's really good here then. just in case they play that super long game and they can't just
Yeah.
like swing 15 at you with their leader, you know.
Yes. Marco's nice. I know a lot of people were playing Shirai, I think is the card, the new film guy,
Yeah.
because they're like, oh well, like he can match power leader, so like I can use that as like just he already gets to 9 by himself and stuff like that. Um, I think that's like stuff to look into as like Black Yellow Luffy gets more prominent in the format, especially like right now in the EB formats.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the best way to win, even like you have to just wall up and then hope they don't see a lot of Sabos. Because once they start playing like 3 Sabos down, you're like, ugh.
Yeah. Well, it kind of makes it hard if now for waiting because they're gonna see those Sabos. But you know, if you've ever played Taxi Luffy, there's unlucky times, right?
Yeah.
So it's not.
Uh, yeah. And then the other thing is like your win con in that deck is like Rush Luffy, but then they play the Sabo, so they can just pop the Rush Luffy. But a lot of people only play it like at 2, so you're just like don't
Yeah,
see the 2 of.
you're just hoping. I'm playing it at 3 right now, but you just hope you just
Yeah.
hope they don't see that because it's pretty gross.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think if there's really anything else. I mean, Nine Beards super good. It just matches your opponent, so you
Yeah.
can swing big ass at them.
Yeah,
So
you're basically like play Rush Luffy, play Ace, play Ninebeard, and you're not attacking with any of them. And then like you're waiting for like a turn where you can just kind of go in. And that's the entire
okay,
strategy.
got it. Yeah, so maybe this matchup more of like a either get Nightbeards, Aces, or Mulligan to get Ezos, right?
Yeah,
It's not a grab the one drops and just go for it. But unless they're I guess Ezo, right? So
yeah.
okay. Got it. I think that makes a lot of sense going forward. I think that's the best way to face them. I don't know exactly what their strategy will be, but is there am I missing a Mel? I guess I can talk about Katakuri. What do you think about the Katakuri matchup? It hasn't been that prevalent in EB, but what am I
It's
missing?
like this
You know.
basically the same thing with the Nell, except you can put them to 0. Like I just go to put them to 0 as fast as possible
Okay.
and then hope they can't do it. Big Mom's pretty bad against this. Like 10 drop Big Mom's pretty
Terrible.
bad against this deck.
Yeah.
Um,
Just take your. I think this is the game you actually just take the damage,
oh
and
yeah, I just take the damage the entire
they
time.
drop a 7 drop mom. Okay, take the
Yeah.
damage. Yeah. Okay.
It is a little scarier because before, like, Marco could just kind of wall off the deck, but now they have 100 million volts, and that like just rests Marco.
I guess you have to kind of think about that too if you want to actually
Yeah,
put
you're
them on
always
too.
like, whenever you're doing your math, you always have to like account like, oh, can I survive if they double 100 million volt me this turn? Like
Yeah,
that's something you also have to like consider.
that's a good thing. Okay, yeah. So watch out for Amaru, and then just go face really hard, make their 10 mom useless. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. I think the last matchup I want to bring up today is actually Red Purple Law. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
So it's an annoying matchup
Mm-hmm.
for sure because they do all the bottom decking, but you red purple law is like really really good, but also their hands usually not like that great, and then
Yeah,
they have to like the new purple girl,
yeah,
whatever her name
Reiju.
is,
Yeah,
Reiju. Yeah, Reiju's like their whole like hand filtering, but if they're like playing Reiju's against me, then like maybe they're not going as aggressive, and then they play like the lower end like attackers, so like they'll play like Zoros and stuff like that, and Zoros like they can't go aggro with me with Zoro. They're playing a lot of 5k bodies, so I can kind of wall them off easier than the other decks can.
Mm.
Um, and I eventually like when I start playing the aces and the Newgates, like
Mm.
you can't just like chump kill an ace. Like you
You
have to
can't.
invest like two of the one drops on it. And then a lot of the time they don't play like really high end minusing. Like they don't play like a round table or
Yeah,
anything like that.
exactly. Yeah.
So if
Maybe they'll get away
you
with the weird fire fist, but you know,
yeah,
yeah.
that or gamma knife.
Oh, Gavin, Gavin,
Yeah.
I never thought I'd hear that card again. I that got me a win in like a pre-release, so it was just,
Oh really? I
yeah,
was playing around with gamma knife and red purple law because like a 2 cost that minus to something 5 is nice.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I had a gamma knife and then do a fire fist to like get rid of a blocker so I could win like one pre-release event.
Oh
But that was just, it was really cute. It was like it was fucking
yeah.
great. But yeah,
Um,
sweet. I mean, just to kind of rehash that strategy, essentially, Red Purple Law has issues right now in itself, and just kind of do your main strategy and build tall is very good against this deck.
100%.
I guess I'd say counter out early. So I mean, even if you don't counter out
Yeah.
early, like they're at 6 down. What are they going to do? Swing 11 at you?
Yeah, they're not going to be able to go like for really big, tall, aggressive plays with this deck. And their guys are pretty low. Like Kid Killer is going to definitely be a scary card against them because like that guy just comes out for 7. But if they're like playing like Rush Zoro, like Cool Man, yeah, you swung 5 at me twice.
Yeah. You keep one Dawn up, they have to tickle you, right? So. Yeah, definitely the smaller cards will get chumped here, but I think it's a good thing to play these downs if they're forced to remove the small cards, right?
Yeah, because like even Marco might kill something when you play it, like the 5-cost Marco, and then Rush Luffy just being able to get in because like their hand's low. So like if I like play Rush Luffy and swing 6 twice, like they're gonna have to probably take one of those.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Okay, sweet. I think we went over pretty much most or all the matchups. I guess I wanted to kind of go over a final thoughts or is there any like final thoughts so far for this set? I know that Black Yellow Luffy's basically the boogeyman and everything else is just the game. But
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So Whitebeard's like a leader where you have to like really think about what the meta is at the time. Like, it's not a deck that is good enough on its own right now where you can just show up to any tournament and expect to do well with it. It's really format dependent, and then you have to really analyze what the meta is going into an event. Like, when I just topped with Whitebeard, I was like, that was one of the best events to be showing up with Whitebeard to the event. But literally the next week, because me and my friend both topped with Whitebeard at the same time, everyone had Whitebeard on the radar, and that was like one of the worst events to bring Whitebeard to because of that. And then you have to like really think about what the format is and what you're expecting to be playing against. So like right now it's like, oh, I'm going to be sitting against a bunch of Black Yellow Luffy players, so like maybe it's not the best time. But maybe as the format devolves, like people stop playing Black Yellow Luffy, you see it like showing up less and less, then you can kind of be like, oh, I can get away with this deck, and then hope that I just dodge it in tournaments and everyone's playing like some other deck that this deck might actually have like a decent matchup.
That's Gecko Moria strategy right now. Just avoid Black Yellow Luffy, beat everything else. So
yeah, 100%.
The words of Chris Sock, just avoid the deck. That's easy.
Avoid the deck, yeah. Just do it.
All right. Enough. Great. I mean, I think we have a guide. I first want to say thank you, Evan, for stopping by and doing this with me. And it's going to be good. Actually, my brother's going to be playing Whitebeard. So I think a lot I think a lot of returning players like this deck, right?
Yeah, something that I didn't say, but one of the good parts about this deck is that this deck's probably like one of the cheapest decks to play in the format.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like pretty affordable. It has no secret rares, and then it has like SRs. Like the SRs have like a $5 to $10 value on, but you're not like having to picking up like Red Purple Law, like in comparison. Like that deck's super expensive.
Yeah, we're just comparing this deck compared to the most expensive decks right now, which is pretty
crazy. Because I usually see like people try to get back in the game and they're like, hey, I'm trying to get back in the game and my budget's like $100, $150. Like this is the deck for that. Like it's a strong enough deck in the format where like if you bring it to locals, you can probably expect to do well enough if you're a good player. And then, but like you're not investing like $500 on a deck.
I would call Whitebeard the money ball of this game right now. So just invest the least amount to get the most return.
Yeah, it's really funny. I have a master play set of the game. Like every set I pick up the 4 copies of everything. Like I just picked up my 4 Bond Clays and stuff like that. And I like look at my Whitebeard deck, which is the only deck that I ever play at big events really. And I'm like, why do I even bother buying all these expensive cards? Like I have a max rarity yellow deck. And I like never play it.
Yeah. Well, those people that just like only can play with max rarity decks, maybe you pulled a card and you're like, oh, I gotta max the deck out now. Like it just costed you money. But it's funny. But I think that's a really interesting thought. But is there any other thoughts? I know you're saying it's the cheapest deck. I think I would call it a little simpler, but honestly every deck is complicated in its own way.
It's easy to play but harder to master kind of thing. I think like the last 2 turns of the game are this big skill check for this deck, and then as you play and play more, you'll probably get better at it. But like as a newer player, play Luffy, play Ace, play Whitebeard. Like it's not that hard, And then sometimes that's good enough. Like it was good enough in set 2 where it didn't matter how good you were with the deck as long as you play 3 Whitebeards in a row,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it literally was a band leader, and it's not like it got worse. So, all right.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you all so much for watching this guide. We'll see you in the next one. Ciao.